Hello, storygoers, and welcome back to another episode of Tales from the Cartridge, the video game storytelling podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Eric Penrod.
And I'm your other co-host, Ryan Bauer.
And we're back, and I want to open up with just this kind of fun, icebreaker, funny story that happened to me. I feel like it's relatable. I don't think I told you this last time I saw you, Ryan, but the other day I was walking out of work, and my parking lot is very close to my work, and I was kind of just in my own head thinking, and my car is a very kind of generic car. It's very blends in. So I went to the usual parking spot, got in my car, and realized it smelled a little different. It smelled nicer than usual. And I realized I was not in my car. I was in someone else's car. Same car as mine. I immediately noticed that theirs smelled better, which sucks. That's the first thing I noticed is that their car smelled better than mine.
Yeah.
As for a split second, I thought, wow, my car smells good.
What did I do
smell good.
to deserve this nice smelling car?
Ryan, how are you?
I am doing pretty good. What a wild time. What a wild story. I'm doing good. It's a nice, cozy, rainy day. We went for like a 3.5 mile walk around the
Nice.
a local place around a body of water, which is very nice. Even though it was kind of rainy and wet, it was good and important to get out. We were both feeling like we didn't want to do anything, so we forced ourselves to go for a long walk. So that was good. I've been playing. It's been a little bit, so I've played a bunch of stuff. Hades 2 is out, and we've both been playing a bunch of that.
Yes.
To increasing amounts. I'm starting to get to a place where I haven't done everything, but I'm feeling like I want to slow down.
Yep.
I've seen enough to know I really like it. And I've hit a couple walls, and I'm feeling like I want to kind of start to pull back until there's more stuff there for me to come back to. I haven't beaten any of the end things, but I've done enough of them that I feel like I've seen enough. And there's a bunch of other stuff kind of coming out or taking up my time. So I haven't played as much as that, but I played so much. I think I'm probably 30-40 hours or something like that in. Of just lots of time, and the runs take a little longer. It feels like than the first game. The runs can take at least for me, can take upwards of an hour. But much that I started and got a good chunk of the way through a game called Animal Well, which is published by Video Game Donkey. If you don't know who he is, he's a YouTuber, and it's such a phenomenal game. It's one of those games where one dude worked on a single game for 9 years and made this really weird game. Very fun, very strange, and kind of abstract in some ways, but really basic in other ways. If you like puzzly games, it definitely feels in the same vein of a Chance of Sinar or Oberdin, this weird, doesn't really fit into any specific genre. The only thing that carries through from start to finish is you learn new stuff. Really cool, really fun. We were talking about in our last episode, Fallout came out and made everybody excited about Fallout and want to do some more Fallout. So I've been kind of jumping in and out of New Vegas. I actually just started playing Up again this weekend after taking a month off with all the other stuff that came out. And a new season of Diablo, which they've fixed a bunch of stuff. They've made it feel better and less of a grind, and it's been very, very fun. So I've been playing just a bunch of bits and bobs here and there all over the place. So yeah, that's what I've been playing. Eric, how are you? What have you been playing?
I'm good. You're right. It is very rainy today. It was just downpouring a second ago.
Yeah.
But now it seems to be letting up. These last couple of days have been beautiful, and today it's so cold.
Yeah.
Cold Memorial Day. But yeah, no, I'm good. And for what I've been playing, like you, I got the Fallout bug, but instead of going to the New Vegas route, which honestly I've been seeing a lot of clips of New Vegas from other people playing it. It's very, very funny. I haven't played that game in so long. I remember playing it and loving it, but it's been forever.
Mm-hmm.
But I jumped into Fallout 4. I made my fiance into my character.
It's very fun.
I've been trying to channel her, which I think is kind of annoying for her to watch. I'm trying to imitate what I think she would do, which is honestly the opposite. She and I are opposite people. So it's kind of the opposite of how I would normally play.
Interesting.
And it's kind of fun.
It's kind of fun role play.
It's forcing me to think differently, and I really like that because I would be extremely confrontational. And in this game at least, and go in and try to kill everybody in this little base, whereas I feel like she would be very sneaky and very kind of I really don't want to kill anyone else. I have to, kind of thing. She
Yeah.
actually did her special stats with me. She actually got
Oh,
super
that's
into it,
very
did her
fun.
special, which was a lot of fun. It was really
Yeah.
cool. And then I did my special stats, and of course they were literally like flip flopped, like between the two
That's
of us,
really
which was really
cool.
funny.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And then, like you said, Hades 2 has been fantastic. Man, I love how special that game is. It's so cool. It's so cool. I like my cat is very upset. I really love the new cast of characters, and
Hmm.
I'm excited. I think you're actually further than I am because the other game I've been playing, of course, is Fortnite. I'm still just stuck
Yeah.
in the weeds with that game. I was always. Man, they just know how to get that dopamine pumping in my brain and just to get me coming back. It's just
Yeah.
like it's so funny because like I just as an adult, it's just so it's so hard to find the time. Like I
Mhm.
want to play FF7 Rebirth, but it didn't click for me yet. And there's just other games that just make me feel like I have a whole experience and I can let it go.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, Fortnite has just been scratching that, and Hades 2 has been scratching those itches for me a lot. But no, Hades 2 is great. I really, really, really like it. So yeah, nothing crazy, nothing too wild, but I don't know. I keep seeing stuff for Black Mist Wukong or whatever it's called, and I'm very
Oh
excited for it.
yeah.
I know the
Yeah.
Souls like I'm very excited for.
That's gonna be very
Yeah.
good. I think. I think that's gonna make
Yeah.
some big waves.
I'm hoping so. It's gonna be from a Chinese-based company, which is kind of like wild.
Yeah.
I don't think really China has ever really had such a big. I mean, I could be very wrong. I could be very.
Right.
I mean, not. I mean, big game in terms of like this, like not the Tencent games or anything like that, but like more of a Souls like really big open world adventure kind of thing like that they're seemingly doing. But anyway,
Yeah.
now I'm rambling. Storygoers, we hope that you enjoyed our last episode of the lore of Fallout. And before we jump into kind of our usual spiel, I think it's good to say, like, yes, this took a month off. That was not, kind of honestly too, that was not really planned, just because things kind of got crazy and just got really heavy. And after a lot of talking, Ryan and I think we have a better game plan as to how to work through Tales in a much more conducive way to our lifestyle, rather than like really stressing about it. And for two ADHD people, when we feel overwhelmed, man, it's easy to shut down really
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
But after talking about it, the new format for Tales moving forward is a little bit the same and a little bit different. We're still going to do our DLC episodes. We'll still do our bedtime stories or campfire stories, as well as other things that hopefully will come up soon. And then for our main stories, our big stories, we haven't done them in so long because they're just so big and so hard to tackle all at once, like we used to be able to do, kind of like COVID and post-COVID. What we decided now is to take bigger stories and break them up into chunks, as we do with bedtime stories and campfire stories and other things like that, and just focus on doing bigger stories in smaller bits and pieces, and at the end combine them all, but slowly releasing them, of course, as we go. And the mindset is that we'll do, Ryan and I are going to cover 2 different games, and we're just going to take turns flip-flopping back and forth month to month, and we're just releasing those in parts. So that's kind of the game plan right now, and it feels much more tangible. We actually have,
Yeah.
I mean, I speak for myself. I already have part of my script done. It felt really easy to kind of do rather than have the whole thing all done.
Yeah.
And the hope is that that by doing this, we're going to be making a better product, better story, better engaging medium in which we can have the time to put the right sound effects in more and edit it better and just have more time to make this better thing. I don't know, ever since we talked about this, Ryan, like I keep thinking about all the episodes I wish we had done this with. I think it would have been better. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking that this will be the right path for this moving forward. So hopefully that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Did I
that makes total
explain that
sense.
well?
Yeah. I think like you're good. I was looking at like the past few years and our output of those big stories, and we put like between like maybe 3 or 4 after like it's all said and done because of the volume of these things. And I think you'll still probably get 3 or 4 big stories a year, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on like how big these stories are. It just allows us to break them down into manageable amounts, and like it requires like some of my favorite episodes are those Baldur's Gate episodes, but they're 3 hours long to sit and listen to, and that can be a huge commitment of time. And so hopefully it also is, for the storygoers, it's easier to consume, a half an hour, 45-minute episode or whatever length we kind of end up landing on. It's easier to consume that, weekly monthly as you're getting multiple episodes throughout the week. And then, like Eric said, we can put them all together and release them as a bigger, fully complete. Will look pretty similar to what we released previously, probably longer and more detailed and with more sound effects because of the time we can take. And then that's something we can release and put out there on our Patreon or however we decide the best way to do that, to make sure it's people still have access to those things that take a lot of work to put together. But if not, you still have access by listening to them however you'd like. But we'll find a way to make sense to either put those on our Patreon or elsewhere.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. So that's the plan right now. So for June, which this episode should be our June episode for the DLC, moving on, we should be having 3 stories a month as usual. 1 typical break in the middle, and then if we have 5 weeks in a month, we'll try to do something extra, throw something extra in there if we can. But yeah, so hopefully this works out well. I feel, I must speak for myself, so I don't want to speak for you, Ryan, but I just feel so much better about this moving forward. I feel like we can finally do other stories that aren't conducive to just bedtime stories or scary story, campfire stories. I feel like this is finally something that we can finally get back into the main reason why we started the podcast, is to tell really cool, fun stories from video games that we love. And I think this will be a great way to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also think doing it the format we were doing before kind of almost, at least forced me to shy away from big stories because I just didn't have the bandwidth to tell those. And sometimes I would then be more drawn to smaller stories with less smaller games with less story, because I knew we could get it done in that time. And again, that isn't necessarily serving the purpose of what I'm excited about, and I think you are excited about when we make these, is telling these big good stories. And I think this will allow us to maybe not be so scared to take those bigger, more intense stories on if we can break it up.
Yeah 100%, as I've been wanting so desperately. I mean, if we're going on to year 5 of Tales in August, and I've been wanting so badly to cover Zelda for the longest time, and it just feels like such a daunting task to take on all at once and write a script like that. But this new plan feels so much more conducive to being able to produce something, not only that will be a good story, of course, because they are great stories already, but done well in this medium with sound effects and things like that are engaging and fun for people to listen to and get into. So I think this will be a much better thing. And it's just, I think patience is key, and it'll just be nice when we get through the whole story and you combine it, you can listen to it all over again and enjoy the whole thing at once. And yeah, it'll just be fun like that. So I'm very, very excited for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be our path moving forward. But as always, if you want to send us your thoughts, feelings, or perspectives, you have our email you can send it to at talesfromthecartridge@gmail.com. All of the E's are 3s. You can also find us on our social media, which is basically just Instagram at this point. We have Threads, but does anyone use Threads? I don't know. I don't even know. That's not even a diss. I don't really know if anyone uses Threads or not. Or by leaving a voicemail or text at our toll-free number at 207-494-4334. And of course, our Spotify poll questions down below if you're listening to Spotify, such as these following people. For our campfire story, our Bunny Day campfire story, which I was really proud of. It came together really fast. The question was, who or what do you think is inside of Zipper's suit? And listener ZGB said, I think that there's a black hole inside. Since the world fades to black on the outside, parentheses, the black hole expanding, end parentheses, and the final thoughts before you are thrown through it and out of another location. And I think that I love that idea, and I think that you took the story and totally ran with it in such a cool way that I was even that took kind of the thing that I had put into the story, and ZGB, you took it and kind of ran with it in such a cool way. That would be awesome if Zipper's bunny suit was just this kind of black hole void thing. That'd be kind of sick. Yeah. I was really happy with how my voice turned out too, because it sounded so gross. I remember listening to it and be that sounds horrible, and I love it. Okay, for our Mario Kart annual Mario Kart Grand Prix, which we gotta get back to soon. That is a goal for the summer, I think. The Odyssey said, I love it, but can you please make a new one because it's so good? Yes, we hope to. I really, really want to. I think I never actually, this is, please forgive 10-year-old Eric, I think maybe 11-year-old or 12-year-old Eric. I never played Double Dash on the GameCube. And I played basically all the other Mario Karts from the SNES to the Switch today. Double Dash is one I never was able to play, never got into for some reason. So I'd love to cover that. I think that'd be a
Yeah,
lot of
that
fun
would
to
be fun.
cover. Just putting really weird characters together and having them try to work together, and the mayhem that would be caused from it would be really cool.
Yeah.
For our bedtime stories, Pokemon Yellow Part 6, the question was, do you agree with the trainer using respect rather than force to gather Pokemon partners? And Dawn wrote in and just said, yes way, which, cool, awesome, I'm glad you agree. For our DLC episode, but who would be the best in an Easter egg hunt, Wolf wrote in and wrote Mario be the best because he can find lots of Yoshi eggs. And that's actually a really good point.
Good point.
Don't
He's
think
found
we
eggs
thought
before.
of.
No,
Yeah.
no.
I mean, he technically is an abuser because he does bonk Yoshi on the head in the Super NES game.
Yep.
Which is pretty problematic if you ask me. Not cool. And let's see what else he got here. For our bedtime story, Pokemon Yellow Part 9, the question was, if you were red, would you want Bulbasaur to join your team? And Wolf again wrote in and said, yes, definitely 100%. And I very much agree. I was always... Ryan, did you ever play Pokemon Yellow?
I definitely did. I don't remember much of it, but I definitely did play it because I remember that experience of walking around and Pikachu following you as you walk around.
Yeah. That was the only... I had blue until yellow came out, and I was so ready because, like, the starters were always my favorite, but I couldn't trade with anyone to get all the starters. So I always felt like I was missing something. And yellow, being able to have all those starter Pokemon, just like scratches like an itch in my Pokemon brain that is just so perfect.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of creepy when I say it that way.
Is yellow the one where you could also was Mewtwo in yellow? Wasn't that you went in a cave or something and you had to face Mewtwo? Was that in yellow?
I think you're right.
Else?
Yeah, because I think originally in blue and red, wasn't it like a glitch or something? Mewtwo was like a glitch or something like that.
I know Missingo was in. Where you duplicate the rare candies.
That's right.
But I think. For some reason, I have a vivid memory of going like down a waterway and into a cave, and Mewtwo is in there. I don't know why that memory is in there, if that's even right.
I think you're right. I'm pretty sure because there's also like a short anime I feel like that's based on Pokemon Yellow, and he goes after Mewtwo. So I think you're right. We'll find out when we cover it. For our Little Nightmares Part 4 episode, the question was, how do you feel about the overall story of Little Nightmares? Our good friend Paul wrote in and said it's such a great game. Totally agree. For our Untitled Goose Game, Paul again wrote in answering the question, what do you think about this game? They wrote in saying, amazing, but I can't get past the groundskeeper. He's very frustrating. He is tricky. Getting the hat off his head was the most frustrating part to figure out on my own. I hated that so much until you finally get it, and it's like, why didn't I think of that before? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will say though, oh man, I have like banned. Sorry, I have a trauma response right now.
Yep.
Untitled Goose Game, I have banned that. I've not said this. It's only me saying this to myself. I have banned that in my therapy sessions with kids as like a game to play together, because I like playing co-op games and like building that like kind of therapeutic rapport. But Untitled Goose Game makes me so incredibly frustrated, which I have to keep my composure in these therapy sessions, because up to the pub section of the game is impossible to play with a kid and try to make that work, because like you can all be so far apart from your partner that it just messes the camera all up, and you cannot play it. It's like unplayable. It's very frustrating. I've never gone past it because usually the kids who want to play that are kind of younger and they just don't have
the skills that are required
to
do the goosing. Yeah.
And then of course our last write-in was from Jacob, who wrote in for our campfire story, our Five Nights at Freddy's campfire story, and said, what spooky story should we cover next? And they said Sonic.ex, which I've like vaguely watched, I think, that before, or vaguely know what that is. So maybe we can cover that. We'll see. We'll do our best. But thank you as always.
Oh, that looks terrifying.
To everyone who... It's probably scary. Yeah.
Yep. I regret opening. I was like, oh, is that one where Sonic is like Sherlock Holmes and it's a weird detective game? It's not that.
No, but we should cover
not
that.
Yeah, I know.
We should cover that. I actually watched Game Grumps play that, and I thought to myself, that'd be so cool to cover, but we would have to do so many voices.
Yeah.
But it's probably doable. We might be having a Sonic game in the future. Hopefully coming up.
Yeah.
So, one day.
We'll have precedent. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
Storygoers,
establish our
if
Sonic
you
voices.
bless through Sonic. No, I was practicing it. I gotta get that. I gotta edit that part just out now. That was embarrassing. But
No, it's
I'm
perfect.
very excited to cover a Sonic game and do Shadow. I think Shadow talks like this, all grumpy and
Yeah.
chaos control, and it's very funny. I don't know. It's just so I used to love that Sonic Adventure Battle 2 so much as a kid growing up. It was so much fun.
Great game.
But even though I don't think I ever beat it. Do you ever have a game that you just loved as a kid that never actually beat?
So many. I remember just getting random games for my PlayStation, and I just played them for hours and hours and have no concept of what progress I made or whatever happened to them. But I know I didn't finish them.
Negu Starfighter for me was the one.
Oh, yeah.
I got on the PS2. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I never beat it, but I would play it forever.
Yeah.
So good. Storygoers, as always, you can donate to our Patreon. Though I will say we took the last 2 months off, so we're going to pause our Patreon for now. Just because I totally forgot about it, and that's not very cool and not very fair because we didn't do anything really these last 2 months. So we're going to pause that. But of course, if you want to join, you're welcome to. And then we'll be putting more stuff out on there, such as like our scripts and exclusive episodes. We're getting the next bundle of Pokemon episodes out hopefully soon, as well as the warm, fuzzy feelings of supporting Ryan and myself, which we would really appreciate. If you don't mind rating us on Spotify and Apple, that'd be fantastic. I will say these last 2 months, even though we've done the least engagement with our podcast, we've had so many people join and follow us, specifically on Spotify, which is just kind of crazy and wild. So again, thank you everyone for doing that. And yeah, man, my cats are so upset today. And they're quiet all day until I started recording, and now they're just like losing their mind. My dog is like on this little bed in our den, just looking at them. He's the fun police. So, like if they like freak out, he'll be on it. He'll jump down and like freak out on them to stop freaking out. It's it's like hurt people. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
But today what we're going to do is actually, no, Ryan, I've talked way too much. Do you want to tell the storygoers what we're doing today?
We're going to do a couple things today. We had grand plans to talk through the Fallout show and split it up into 2 sections and talk about the whole show in a lot of detail. It doesn't necessarily feel like now is the time to do that. We still want to share our thoughts, though, and talk through, because I think it's like another big moment in games, media outside of their game. So we're going to talk through our thoughts and feelings on the Fallout show. There'll probably be spoilers, just a heads up. For sure. So just be aware of that. We're going to talk through that. And then we're going to, take a break from that. And then we're going to go through the Game of the Year GOTY winners from as long as the Game Awards have been around, which, isn't that long, but, it's been probably 9 years. Yeah.
2014.
Yeah, and we're going to do a fun little matchup of all of those games. Eric has, made a beautiful criteria of how we're going to rate them. We'll get into more details when we get there. And we're going to see which is actually the best game of the year of these options. They're not seeded in any way, so we might get some weird matchups. And we're just going to live in that space and have a wonderful time.
Yeah, because this is a fire truck on fire, as always.
For sure.
And we go with the flow.
Yeah.
So yeah, but Ryan, we actually had a what do you want to call it? A watch party at your house for the Fallout show, which is very fun. That was a great way. What did you feel like? I mean, of course, we gotta talk about the elephant in the room really quick. We had both guessed, like, there's no way they're gonna talk about the Enclave in this show. It's way too kind of like in depth with this thing. It's not gonna. No one's. And then of course, like the first episode. Oh, spoiler alert! By the way, this would be all spoilers. Like, if you didn't watch the show, don't listen to this part.
Jump ahead probably like 15-20 minutes, and we'll probably we might be done talking about Fallout by then. But yeah, we're definitely gonna be talking spoilers here.
Yeah. Of course, they talk about the Enclave immediately. Yeah. Like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, you literally like see them. Like, you see the Enclave, you're like, oh my god, that's wild. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. But what were your thoughts on the show overall? What are the things that you enjoyed?
Yeah, I thought overall it was a really great adaptation of like really capturing what that wasteland and experience felt like. I thought the characters were all really interesting. They're all really different in their perspective. I love that they had these like different, really varied experiences that we were able to see the world through that I really enjoyed, and I think is the only way to really capture that full experience of what the wasteland feels like and what those experiences are. I think like having Maximus's experience of like naive in some ways but like really understands a lot of the world in other ways. Lucy, like understands like some things really well, like social emotional and how to be a person and how we should treat each other, but then how that like doesn't at all jive with the wasteland. And then the ghoul, who has a vast amount of experience and is really jaded because of it. These the three really interesting perspectives. I love how they interplayed and kind of bounced off of each other in some ways. And I would like to see more of it. I'm excited for more of that experience. So I thought they did a great job of creating a world that felt like Fallout, that felt like, what it is like to be in those games and to be in that space, which I think is the hardest probably thing to do. I think some things didn't land as well as others, like Maximus's character I had a hard time connecting with just because his choices felt like kind of all over the place. And I mean, I think like part of it is also he is designed to be maybe a not likable character. Like I got the sense that as a viewer I was maybe not supposed to like him, and I probably wasn't also supposed to like the ghoul, but because he was such an anti-hero, right, it's hard to not. And Walton Goggins is a really incredible actor. It was hard to not be like rooting for him and the cool wild stuff he's doing. I think those characters are really great to see. I think there's some unanswered questions that I still have that I'm curious how they're going to solve for and answer for. And I'm really excited. I mean, again, fully spoilers for the show. We are talking about spoilers for the very end. I am right now of the Fallout show. You've been warned. To end at New Vegas is like New Vegas. I love. I'm really curious to see how they're going to play in that space. And Mr. House was in the show in some aspects. So it's interesting to see more of him. I think that is such a really great place to go, knowing how beloved that part of this world is. I'm really excited. I'm hoping that we'll get to meet some more new interesting characters and play more in that space. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I thought like a lot of, I don't want to just ramble for too long, but like when they explored vaults, they felt like they really explored what that was like and how they were all like experimenting on people, and they showed that in a really interesting way. Yeah. I love the focus on Shady Sands, which like if you're not really into Fallout, you might not have that context, but it's like such an important place in the West Coast Fallout world. It was really cool to see. It is a bit of a bummer that they just nuked it. This like really important part of the world that they like nuked for the sake of this TV show was a bit of a bummer, but I think it is further emphasizing that war never changes. We don't change until we are able to like restart, and we aren't able to do so. Or we aren't able to do so. We're gonna keep making these same mistakes. We're gonna keep destroying the things that each other builds up. The NCR was like a pretty corrupt organization by the end there. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff I liked, some stuff that I didn't think landed as well, but I was able to ignore all of the stuff that didn't click because I was so excited to have an adaptation that felt so much like Fallout. And that's just a series I really love and have put a lot of time into.
Yeah. I mean, I think in a lot of ways I respect it. Maybe slightly more than The Last of Us, because I feel like The Last of Us, though it took new liberties, I think they all paid off really well. Fallout was such kind of a risk in my mind, because it's literally just its own original story based on what we already know in the world of Fallout. Yeah, and I think it really could have gone either way, and I think you're right. I think having only one protagonist would have really been a disservice to the kind of the overall view of the world and the experiences of the characters. And I was just telling you, I think I kind of saw it. I think I actually thought this, but I could have read this, of course. I saw the ghoul as the experienced veteran Fallout player, and Maximus, or I'm sorry, Lucy as kind of like the newbie getting into Fallout for the first time and not really knowing what to expect. And then Maximus being kind of the in-between gamer who just doesn't really care about the story. He's just kind of making choices and wanting to kill things, and have fun and power armor. And I think it was kind of fun because you can kind of relate to all of them in different ways. Mm-hmm. And I think again, you're also right that like all the pros outweigh the cons, though there are some cons that are a little like just prevalent, and it's like, okay, well, hopefully they rectify this in season 2. And what I mean, we don't know how Moldaver, is that her name? Yeah. Don't know how she got to the future. Yeah, no idea. We kind of assume we know, right? Yeah. I do think the ghoul was so cool. I think Walter Goggins is such a good actor. I love seeing that beginning, that opening with him at the party with his daughter. And the nukes falling was such a way. It was hard not to be like, oh my god, that would be horrible. It's hard not to like empathize in that moment and how terrifying that would be. When he did and the daughter did the thumb thing, and It was like, oh, it made my stomach like sink into my wherever that it would sink. It made my heart fall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or drop, whatever. It was so cool, and to see him turn into this like super kind, nice actor, into this kind of the just hardened jerk who just is doing what he can to survive.
Yeah.
Such polar opposites of the same person is really cool. I love seeing that kind of change in him, and him kind of going back and reflecting on his past towards the end and where he's come from and stuff like that is really cool. I love that they did two things. One, they gave the ghoul or what's his name, Cooper, right? Yeah. The credit for the Vault suit
Vault
color,
Boy.
which is
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, he's Vault Boy technically, right?
Yeah.
Which is really cool. That is so cool. And there's something else that they did. I had it in my mind and I just lost it. Something else that they... Oh, and that Vault Tech is the ones who dropped the bomb.
Yeah,
right?
they hinted that. Yeah.
Crazy. That like really changes a lot of things in the idea of what happened in this world. Like, this is like substantial. Like, this is like very crazy information for the world of Fallout. It's just like kind of wild stuff. Very cool. I do think episode 4 is my favorite. The Super Duper Mart felt like a level in the game. It felt like Fallout 3 for the first time for me. When I went, when I found that supermarket, and I was like, "Oh, this is so cool!" And walking in, and it's just full of raiders. I'm like, "Oh!" Like hiding behind, like aisles and just like sneaking through was so cool. I really love that episode a lot. I do think the two twists that I didn't love was the one with Lucy's mom at the end.
Yeah,
it was like,
that was a bit weird.
It was very unearned. And the idea that Lucy just somehow forgot. She looked like she was like 10 years old. And she somehow forgot she left the vault. What? How do you forget you left your home? Like, that's like, I don't see how that would be possible. I don't see how she would totally forget that. I feel like that would be a core memory for a kid. If they grew up in a vault, that they left it with their mom. I feel like that, unless something happened, unless the dad did something to Lucy, which I think it could totally be possible. And if they do that in season 2 and they explain that, that's totally okay with me.
Yeah.
And I wish that, I don't know the character's name, the lackey character that followed Maximus that used to be his bully, him turning... I love the whole sequence with the chemist guy. He was so funny. And him healing the lackey guy, what do they call him? The Squire, healing his foot. I was actually really okay with. I really wished he had become a super mutant and not a ghoul. I wish that he had become a super mutant and not a ghoul. I feel like that would have been more interesting, in the idea that this like chemist figured it out randomly through just mixing a bunch of stuff together. That the Enclave couldn't. I think that would have been more fun, because I never heard of a ghoul that had the skin of a normal human, or like he was in the early phases of being a ghoul. I didn't really understand that.
Yeah, it's something that I hope they expand on, because it wasn't super clear and like what was happening. And definitely Super Mutants felt like they were a big part of it was hinted, but it was something that was missing. Super Mutants and Deathclaws are my two things that I really want to see. I think they hinted at Deathclaws somewhere. I don't remember at the end. Where. The skull. Which makes sense, because if you've played New Vegas recently, Deathclaws are terror, like really scary and everywhere in a certain part of that game. On the way to New Vegas, there's like a quarry that you can go through that is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. There's like 10 Deathclaws that just like roam the road to New Vegas. It's like a shortcut to go really from Good Springs to New Vegas. You just have to walk past this quarry, but the road is full of Deathclaws, and it's terrifying. They're so scary. I'm really excited to see them in the show, because those things are like real intense.
That's very cool. I mean, we saw the super mutant hand at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think it was episode 2.
Yeah, which makes sense, because the Enclave is kind of at fault in some ways of that, for the creation of super mutants.
I will say, though, the Brotherhood of Steel now owning having claimed the machine that now creates free energy for the entire... I mean, I tie all of California or more, so I don't even know how far it spreads. That's huge. That's a game changer. Yeah,
I mean, that's going to make the Brotherhood of Steel the most powerful faction in the entirety of the West Coast.
Right.
So it'll be really interesting to see. It would not surprise me if they get to New Vegas and House says, which I would love, we need that power source. Go get it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
that's the arc of the second season, is them working with House to secure. I mean, it can go so many ways. I'm just so excited to be in New Vegas and interact with House because he's such an interesting character, and learn more about, you know, you'll see what carries over, but really curious to see what happens there.
I'm really excited for that too. I do think, it is weird though. The Moldaver was working so hard to make cold fusion happen, to create this limitless energy source, to then die at the hands of people trying to take it from her.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that was the point, but
it plays into like we can never be successful because we continue to fight. We continue to fight over things, so we will never be able to be, you know, stable. Yeah. But it is unsatisfying for that character. Yeah.
That, and also like just the little plot hole that I had just thought of all of a sudden, where like at the really cool fight scene at the end, the last episode, when the ghoul's like, there's an open hatch or something in the power armor that you know, exposes you or whatever, and he kills all the people in the power armor. How did he not think of that when he was fighting Maximus? Like episode 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I was like, it feels like a little bit of a plot hole. But whatever. You know what I mean? That would have sucked if he had killed Maximus. So that's probably a good thing he didn't. And how weird the vault was. I like that they showed the vault. Yeah. It was very weird, but I guess that's the point, because you do find vaults that are very strange, very weird. I think that would be cool to kind of, if they explore that more, and actually go to some of the vaults or hear about some of the vaults that we had heard of from the other games. They'd be really cool. Yeah. But we'll see. I don't know. The New Vegas vaults would be so sick if we can go see those.
Yeah, I think there's a vault on the Strip that is like a luxury hotel.
It's a hotel.
There's the vault 22 or something where you have the spooky green creatures that like crawl around, the plants that shoot at you. Yeah, there's a couple really good vaults in the area that'll be interesting to see. There's the one vault full of fiends right outside of Vegas. It'll be interesting to see how much of that carries over. And now they're moving into territory that is like very well known. They were in like pretty abstract. There's no Fallout that took place like around LA. That was like their own playground. It'll be interesting to see now how if it will be successful or not if they head into this like very well known and beloved part of the universe. Yeah, it's a bit of a risk for sure.
And you know, the house has to be alive. Like they can't just be
of course.
Just be, no, he actually died. The canon is that he actually died.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to see as a kind of like mummified body at some point. You know what I mean? Not mummified, but you know what I mean? Like just like the withered body that, you know what I mean? That'd be super, super cool. And Hoover Dam would be so cool to see too.
And Hoover Dam, interesting to see. Like, because I mean, they'll kind of confirm possibly the ending of New Vegas, like what route things went, because like the Hoover Dam was controlled by the NCR, but Caesar Legion was trying to take it. Like House is also trying to secure it. It'll like kind of solidify a canon ending of that game, which will be interesting.
It'd be so cool. I was like, what if the courier was a character? How cool would that be?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that'd be a lot, but anyway. Yeah. I think overall very good. I think it took a lot of risks and it worked out really well, and I'm very excited to see what happens.
I'm excited that Fallout is back for at least was, and it still kind of is. I mean, it's on its way out, I'd say, because that's the nature of culture. It was exciting. It was an exciting time to be really thinking about Fallout again. What a blunder for Bethesda to not have a game ready to release.
You know they have to now.
They have to. I mean, they're probably going to do remastered New Vegas at Season 2 is my guess.
Oh, that'd be so smart.
That's my guess. Cool. Because I think Elder Scrolls, I mean, they need to be reaching out to other developers and saying, make us a Fallout game right now, please. We need it to be ready. Because there's millions and millions of dollars to be made.
They're like, we have a new Fallout game to coincide with our new Season 2 of the show. It is Fallout Shelter 2! New Vegas edition!
Yeah.
It's like, oh no. Yeah. Todd Howard, why?
How could you, Todd? How could you?
But no, I think overall it's a good show. So I'm happy with. I'm very, very happy. It was very cool.
Yeah.
Still would never want to be a ghoul though. Absolutely
Terrifying. Yeah. Spooky times.
I do like how they had the rad away. Or Rad-X? What is the ghoul taking?
I don't know. Rad-away is what reduces radiation. Rad-X protects you from radiation. I imagine it was Rad-away. But I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, it was very cool. Well, moving on. So today, what we're gonna do? I had this fever dream. I woke up at 3 in the morning this morning, and I had this idea. And I wrote it on my phone, and I fell back asleep. And then I remembered I had this idea right before we started the episode. And I thought, oh, we should, and Ryan was down for it too.
Yeah.
So we thought, what if we took all of the Game Awards winners from each year that won Game of the Year, we put them side by side, and we talked about which one had a better narrative, which Game of the Year had the best narrative from our perspectives, which means we can't be wrong because of our perspectives. I found some good criteria, something easy, something manageable. I think it'd be really easy to kind of look at. So we have emotional resonance. How does this story resonate with us emotionally? The impact it has on our emotions. Does it invoke strong emotions? We have character development. Are they well developed? Are they relatable, engaging? They add to the story and the depth of the characters themselves and the growth they have. The plot, is it a strong plot? Is it clear? Is there any conflict and resolution? Is it have good pacing? Any surprises? And then, of course, world building. Is the setting and the atmosphere and the rules of the world grandiose and really engaging? And do they impact the viewer, or are they not so great? Is it not a super amazing world building thing? Those are the 4 criteria: emotional resonance, character development, plot, and world building that we'll be basing our thoughts on for Game of the Year narratives. Which one is the best one?
Eric, are we like assigning number values for each of these and then adding that up, or is it more of like a vibe, a feel? What are your thoughts there?
Vibe or a feel, but we can go more scientific.
I'm fine. I'm fine with vibe or feel. I just want to understand contextually what are because I think some of these games are going to be really strong in some things and very weak in other things.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's like a weight, but I guess if they're equally weighed, then we would just kind of use how they weigh out in every other thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Maybe we can do like 1 through 3.
I was thinking 1 through 3. 1 through 3 would work fine.
Okay. And then if they're tied, we just go with what our gut.
We go with the vibes, yeah. And I think some of these I don't think we even have to think those numbers out looking at this bracket. Other ones, I am dreading the conversation, trying to decide how. And I mean, also understand, storygoers, as you know, we don't play every single game that ever comes out. We're going to do our best, but we're biased because we're human. And have brains.
Imperfect brains.
Imperfect brains, like really all of them are.
Brains.
For sure. Yeah.
Mine's super imperfect, so I can't be taken seriously with this. So
yeah.
But Ryan, you did a fantastic job making this bracket. I called it a gauntlet, and you didn't understand what I was saying until you said a bracket. And I was like, yeah, bracket. That makes a lot of sense.
I wish they were called gauntlets. I think I'd be more interested in sports. I probably wouldn't, but I think I'd be somewhat more interested in sports if they called it a gauntlet, because then it feels like a battle. It feels like we're fighting to the death, which that's what this is doing. Whoever wins, the losers, you have to delete the games from your whatever system you play them on and can never play them again. So
never play them again.
That's just another layer to be aware of. Just so there's some stakes for the storygoers. You do have to honor this, and if a game loses, you do have to delete it and never play it again.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry,
everyone hates Overwatch by now, so it's cool.
yeah. Can you even play the original Overwatch? Isn't it even possible? Who knows?
Yeah. It's dead to it. Marvel Rivals is what's in now. GG Overwatch. You had fun. That one Game of the Year. Can you believe that one Game of the Year?
I know. There was so much hype. There was so much hype around that game. Back when Blizzard could do no wrong and was well loved. How things have changed.
Yeah. By the way, just gonna shoot my shot in the middle of this random episode that will not actually go anywhere. But man, if anyone is a developer on Marvel Rivals, can't talk it, and wants to give us a cool code to play the game, man, I'd be so happy, because I keep watching people's gameplay videos and I love it. I want to play Marvel Rivals so bad. I cannot say Marvel Rivals together.
Marvel Rivals.
Yeah,
it's hard.
The
Ors and Marvel
but I want to play it still, though.
Yeah, it's a bad mouthfeel, guys. Do something about that.
So first up in the gauntlet bracket, we have The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Yep.
And Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice.
Wow. Wow.
I play both.
You played both. You're the foremost expert in Sekiro here.
I didn't beat it because it was too hard. I
Still the
kept dying to
expert.
this mini boss like halfway through the game, and I gave
Yeah.
up. Um,
Okay. Do you just
yeah,
want to go down? Like, do we want to start with one or the other and just kind of go down, or do you want to move? How fast are you going to move through some of these, and how slow do you move through others?
I mean, we're at 47 minutes now. I think we just play fast and loose and have fun
Cool.
with it.
Great. Love it.
Yeah, I think it's we don't take this too seriously. We just have a good time. If
Mm-hmm.
people like our opinions, awesome. If they don't, write in. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I look at Sekiro, and Sekiro is a game where like it doesn't hold your hand because that's a Souls-like game. If you want the story, you have to really dive deep into it. So in terms of plot, it didn't grab me. There's no emotional resonance to it that I felt like. The only emotional resonance I found was me just constantly dying and getting very frustrated. That's the most emotional output I had during that
What a
game.
powerful emotion it invoked in you.
Oh, it was very powerful. So powerful that I ended up not playing it anymore because I was bad at it. The characters are very cool. I think I will give Sekiro its dues there. Like the characters are cool. Sekiro himself is very, very cool. His prosthetic arm, very, very cool. But not a lot of depth. Like we that he wants to do this thing, but there's not like this like, at least from what I played and understand, this huge pull. It's just more like he had this duty to protect someone and failed, and now he has to save them. So it's kind of like a very general, you know what I mean, connection to or reasoning to what he's doing. And the world is kind of wild and crazy, and doesn't really like convey anything about the story necessarily. It's just very cool to run around in. Man, these games are kind of similar actually. The more I talk, I feel like the same can kind of apply to Zelda. I feel like it's very Link is a non-talking character who doesn't you yourself are engaging with these characters. Link is not necessarily, right? He is, but it's more you as the person. The plot is very kind of fast and loose, so I think it has more plot than Sekiro in terms of like freeing the divine beast, interacting with these guardian people, and kind of like knowing that all these guardians, spoilers for all these games by the way, just a heads up, knowing all these guardians died was kind of like gripping in a way, and it's the emotional resonance of that. And the plot being kind of what you want to be. You can go just fight Ganon, or you can, free these divine beasts. And there's kind of more plot to this. But not a whole lot, because all the plot isn't really that huge, right?
Yeah.
The world building is very cool, though. I think that, like, it does set up the idea that, like, through all these memories, you kind of see the 100 years in the past and what it looked like in the world then and how it changed. And the connection that you have to it, I think, is a little bit stronger than Sekiro, personally. And of course, Zelda always is a little bit more of an emotional resonance. I feel like than most games. There's something special about Zelda, but that could just be me because I'm super biased and I love Zelda. Yeah, I feel like I think they're very similar, but one stands out more to me. I've talked way too much. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know really anything about Sekiro other than it's like, not only is it a Souls-like, but it's a Souls-like that there is like, you just have to get better. Like in Dark Souls and other games, like you can grind things out to get stronger. In Sekiro, there's just you just have to be better at the game. There's no mechanics to support you, and like if you spend enough time, you will get better. You'll get a cooler sword that does a little more damage. That just doesn't exist. So like from like that is like interesting, but like looking at like I have no connection of emotional resonance, character plot, and world building. Breath of the Wild, I think like my biggest challenge with that plot is that like I'm playing, the plot already happened and I'm kind of experiencing it. I'm experiencing these things that already happened and I have no impact on, and that kind of takes a little bit of the wind out of my sails as far as like from a narrative perspective. But I think the world building is like, at least at the time, and I'd say still probably in a lot of ways is pretty incredible, and something to be like really well celebrated, just in the density of things and the richness of that world was something that was really special. Again, I haven't played Sekiro, so it's hard for me to say I think exactly the connection, but I'd say like I know more of Breath of the Wild, so I would go with that one just because of my familiarity with it. But I'd love to hear from folks who've played a lot of Sekiro.
Yeah, I think just because Souls-like, I think Souls-likes all have probably very good stories when you really jump into them, but because they're not necessarily given as they are, like you have to explore and make those connections, I feel like it's not as gripping, at least not as like a tool to enhance necessarily
for sure.
the reason you're playing. It's more like if you're interested go for it. If not, just go kill things and try to get good at the gameplay of this hard, difficult game. Whereas Zelda tries to have an emotional connection with you in some kind of narrative, though again, Link has no personality truly. So it's like that's the bit of a struggle, is that you're not really seeing this character connect with other characters that are trying to connect with him. They're connecting with you. It's a little bit more difficult. I would say though, bias aside, I think Zelda does hold a little bit of a better narrative than Sekiro.
Yeah, and do keep in mind, like, these games were not chosen because they're the most narratively strong. We are applying that, that layer on top of them. Yeah. You can win Game of the Year because the game has, like, really strong mechanics. But I think from our lens, we're really looking at that narrative lens. And,
all the best narratives for each year are ones a lot of them I didn't play actually.
Yeah,
which I hate saying out loud, but so I couldn't. That was the original idea, and I was like, oh wait, I actually haven't played like the half of these games that won best narrative. I was like, well, I should probably go play those again. So I should probably go play those sometime. For now, we'll do Game of the Year though. That makes it a little easier. Okay. So Zelda feels good to you? You think?
I think so. I think Zelda. I think Zelda moves on. I think Sekiro. I would love to hear from people who are really passionate about that game experience, but like I think Zelda has probably, just with the world building, and maybe a little bit with the character development and plot, and then certainly emotional resonance, whether it's because of nostalgia or because like we've been playing these characters for 20 years or however long it's been. I think there's a stronger connection there.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so Breath of the Wild moves forward. Sorry, Sekiro, you died 3 times.
Ooh.
Thank you, folks. I hope everyone enjoyed the episode. Next up is Elden Ring and The Last of Us Part 2. And I've not played Elden Ring, but again, I feel it's probably very much in line with Sekiro. And the idea that there is a good story to tell here with a lot of dynamic characters and things like that, but you really have to find it yourself and put it together yourself, and it is not a tool necessarily used to push you along in the game. It's more of like if you're interested, go for it. If not, go kill all these things. I could be very wrong.
I completely agree. I think if you want to learn about the narrative, you have to watch like multiple YouTube series to understand the deep lore about it.
Yeah. I think it's one of those games whereas like The Last of Us Part 2 was, it has everything. You know what I mean? From a narrative, it was a narrative. It has one of those narratives where I'm like, I have to sit with this for like a couple of years before I feel like I can play this again. Yeah. Which now that they're shooting season 2, I'm kind of like low-key scared to have to go through this again. You know what I mean? And I'm very scared to see what they change, because it just felt like, again, spoilers for all these games. So if you haven't played The Last of Us Part 2, please, if you want to wait for season 2, then please ignore this part and skip ahead. But like, I'm not going to spoil anything really, but like, I just like just the people who die and what happens, the emotional resonance, and the whole overarching story of Ellie compared to Abby and their pain, and they're constantly hurting each other as a form of retribution against one another because they're both seen as the enemy towards one another. The emotional resonance of that and what they go through, and the character development again, and the plot, like it has. And of course, like even the world building, like the different factions they bring into this, and the setting itself, and then just trying to survive. Like it's just so gripping and just so, I don't know. It's pretty powerful. I feel like it has The Last of Us Part 2. This sounds silly to say out loud. Like everyone probably agrees with this, but The Last of Us Part 2 has a narrative that is just like one of the best narratives that's been out in the games, I feel like, in a long time.
Yeah, in media, I would say.
Media. I do feel, side note, I do worry for the actor playing Abby in season 2, because I just I think the hate towards Abby is so unwarranted. I get what Abby did sucks, right?
Yeah, you're supposed to feel bad about it. Yeah,
you're supposed to feel bad, but also the people who are affected by Abby are also not good people, right? Yeah. Like they are not, as much as we love them, they're not good people. Yeah. And so like, not all of them, but the major one. So like, it's again, you don't have to, but it helps to put yourself in the shoes of Abby to understand why she chose to make this move, and the again, the emotional resonance of wanting retribution for what happened to her father, and how powerful that is, and how Ellie would have done the same thing, and what revenge, and the overarching theme of what revenge does to us. We end up losing everything, right? And you see that in both characters, and how they're so similar, but yet their journeys are so different and also similar. It's so, I feel like I'm going on and on. It's just, emotional, and the story itself is just crazy. It's so good. It's so good. You can't. I don't know how to. I don't know how Elden could beat it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, I think this is the game to beat. This is so narratively strong. This feels like the game in this bracket, and there's some other really strong games in here.
I don't know,
but
I don't think I agree with you.
Okay, interesting. I think this feels like the game to beat for me.
Okay.
This has such a strong narrative impact that I think this is going to be a hard one to overcome.
You're saying that It Takes Two is worse? How dare you?
I would like to. We'll see when we get to It Takes Two. We'll talk about.
You know,
It
I was
Takes
joking.
Two.
Please don't.
No, I know. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like The Last of Us Part 2, right, is the obvious winner.
Yeah,
I don't think we have to rate it. We did this whole rating thing. I don't think we have to rate it.
Nope.
Any of these. I think vibe
the
is
ratings,
really the strong
I think,
thing.
are just going to help us in later ones where it's going to
Yes.
be really hard to make decisions.
Round 6, I think, is going to be where, or even round 3, actually. I think round 3.
I'm worried about round 3 personally.
Yeah. Which is next.
Which is
round
next?
3, The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt.
Yeah.
Or is it Witcher 3 Wild Hunt or The Wild Hunt? That was
It might
Is
be
it
The Wild Hunt. I don't. It could be
I think it's
Wild Hunt.
It
Yeah,
is
it might just be Wild Hunt. Yeah.
And Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, man, that's so hard.
Man, I was definitely the Maximus of Witcher 3, just not really caring about anything that was happening in that story.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hunt monsters. So, like,
Yeah.
but definitely, I mean, but then I say that, I'm not saying that as like, oh, it had no narrative, but definitely one that I didn't super land into because I think it took a lot more, like, from the other 2 games to kind of build up into that, to have that.
There's certainly
connection,
some
probably.
of that was needed. Yeah, definitely. Definitely there was some of that needed. I think there's also, like, my biggest challenge with that game is that some of those narrative choices you have to, like, there's certain endings you'll get, like, that's a pretty common thing in games, and some endings you're locked out of if you don't make very specific choices in very specific moments and you're not warned the impact they'll have. Like, there are 5 conversations in that game, and if you say the wrong thing in those 5 conversations, you're locked out of a certain ending, and that feels really hard. Like, that feels like from a gameplay or from a narrative perspective, if you want a certain narrative, a certain outcome. Like, I fully beat that game, got the ending that, like, was pretty a bummer, and then I had to go back. I had to go back like 30 hours and replay a huge chunk of that game to, like, get an ending that, like, felt somewhat satisfying.
Oh man, I'm not you. I got the bummer ending. I said, nope. I was done. I did what I had to do, and I was done. I know that is kind of a bummer, though. You know what I mean? To get that ending, it's a lot.
I think, like, which I didn't even think about this. So interesting to put that up against Baldur's Gate, which, Eric, I know you haven't experienced too much of that.
Played it,
but that is a game where no matter what choice you make, the outcome maybe won't be exactly what you wanted, but it will, like, feel right and feel satisfying and feel like the ending you get justifies even, like, a bad choice you made. Like, even if you make a choice that no one's like, oh man, I really messed that up, the consequences, in a way that I've never experienced in a game before, follow you through to, like, the very end of the game in really interesting ways where, like, nothing feels like necessarily the wrong choice. You're just going to get a different outcome in a really interesting way.
Is it just like is it like every ending bad unless, like, it's the one ending where Alucard just kisses you? Or is that, like, the only ending that can go on? Like,
Exactly.
it's like, oh, Alucard didn't kiss me. I need to go back 60 hours and redo everything.
Yeah.
Is that his name, Alucard?
No, his name is...
I'm thinking Castlevania. I'm sorry. Wrong vampire.
Wrong vampire. I like that your brain connected Asterion and Alucard as 2 sexy vampires swimming around.
Sexy vampire, Alucard. I mean, I never played Castlevania, so I don't know where that came from. What's his name?
Asterion.
It's the A's. It's the A thing. It's the A thing. Sexy vampires, man. They get you.
They'll get you every time.
Yeah.
They'll get you every time.
But unless, I feel like unless he's kissing you, everyone's disappointed. So, but I don't know. Maybe that's what the best narrative is. Ryan, would you feel like? Because I feel like I feel like for these 2 games, they really are on equal footing in terms of, like, world building, plot, character development.
I would say I think character development wise, the amount of changes you experience over the course of Baldur's Gate is probably more impactful than some of the changes through Wild Hunt. There's some stories in the Wild Hunt that are so incredibly strong and so interesting. Like the Bloody Baron jumps out as like a really wild and interesting story in that game that like fully tells you about that world and all the things you experience in it. But we don't really... Yeah, definitely. But you don't necessarily see, you know, a huge amount of character growth out of Geralt as much as the world around you. Which I think you could maybe say a little bit about Baldur's Gate. Tav, the character you create, you know, I wouldn't say there's as much narrative about that character as the other characters you engage with. But you can end up with like very different characters based on, you know, the choices you make. And there's like special endings for all those characters based on choices you make. And like if you see their quests through to certain amounts. But I also think in Witcher there are some characters who, you know, you can have a really big impact on and change in a lot of ways. I think what's hard here is, you know, The Witcher 3 is an older game and Baldur's Gate is a newer game, and it's hard to parse, you know, the level of storytelling that could be told then versus what, you know, was told in Baldur's Gate, which was like an obscene amount that isn't really realistic to expect out of a game because of the amount of time, energy, and money that was put into that is because it was you know, it's hard. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of I would say Witcher even maybe has a little bit better world building in some ways. The world of The Witcher I think is more interesting than like the Forgotten Realms, even though I've played D&D in the Forgotten Realms for like probably 10 years. I think the Witcher world is the Witcher world was created to tell a story in, and you know the Forgotten Realms was I guess in the same way, but not as intentional.
Do you feel like which one do you feel like has more of an emotional resonance for you? Like which one do you feel like got more like an emotional connection to these characters, to this world?
That's so hard. I think it's hard to. Like I have also haven't fully finished Baldur's Gate. Like I haven't gotten to the very end of that experience, and I have gotten to the end of The Witcher plus the DLCs. So I think there is some challenge there in understanding the development. I think like, especially if you played all the Witcher games, you're going to have a really strong connection to some of these characters. Although some of the characters are very different across the games, and like Yennefer is like barely in all of them except the third one.
Is that right?
I think the second one you're with Triss the entire time.
Wow.
I think, but I could be misremembering. That's very likely. Yeah, it's hard.
I mean, I honestly would probably think that Baldur's Gate would probably be the most, just because of all the characters and just like going on this journey with them. Whereas before, it's kind of just Geralt. I mean, there are characters you're interacting with a lot, but like
but I think like it is hard for me to separate Dandelion in the game from Dandelion in like the TV show, and Dandelion in The Witcher 2 are all like very different Dandelions, and I don't particularly care about any of them as much as I care about like Shadowheart during Act 2. You know what I mean? Like the short time I've spent with this person, I know so much more about their character and their motivations and what they're going through. As Dandelion, again, it's because when I played it, I maybe wasn't as paying as close attention as, you know, I probably would now, or had the mental energy to do so. It makes it hard. I think Baldur's Gate is doing more narratively than The Witcher 3 does, by the sheer fact of the amount that is in there and the time and energy put into it. I think there's more there. I think like Cyberpunk is even better than The Witcher 3 in all of these aspects.
Yep.
Which it's a bummer that's not on here. But I think for very good reasons. When it came out, it had no place in these conversations. But yeah, so I think I'd probably give it to Baldur's Gate.
You give it to Baldur's Gate, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I think you're right though. I think time is a huge factor in this. You know what I mean? If it probably wasn't for Witcher 3, Baldur's Gate wouldn't be probably what it is also, right? I'm sure like they take aspects of that, because I think The Witcher 3 really did push the bounds of what narrative storytelling is in open world games. Yeah. So yeah, no, I think it makes kind of sense. I don't think it's a knock against The Witcher 3 by any means, but more so just a sign of the times. You know, which is like wild to think that, you know, Baldur's Gate 3 is even bigger than The Witcher 3.
Yeah, which was nuts. The Witcher 3 when it came out felt like
huge
and insurmountable. And Baldur's Gate 3 feels like maybe 3 times as big, which is nuts. Yeah.
Huge.
Huge. Baldur's Gate 3 isn't even, I wouldn't even really say it's like a fully open world game. You get like locked out of huge sections of the game as you progress. So
Really?
yeah, you move as you move. I mean, you can always fast travel back, but there's just nothing there. But
Yeah.
like you move to new areas, and like it says, hey, make sure you wrap up all your loose ends, because once you move to Act 2, these storylines are going to continue, and if you don't do anything, the story doesn't stop. You know what I mean? It keeps going, and that's going to have an impact on you later. So yeah, there's things that like if you don't engage with, they will keep going, and you'll have to deal with the consequences of that.
That's pretty wild.
Way. Yeah, it's nuts.
That's pretty wild.
It's absolutely insane. We need to sit down. I haven't beat this game, Eric, but I don't know where we'd find the time, because I've played Act 1 probably 10 times, and it takes 10 to 15 hours every single time.
That's wild.
Nuts.
That's wild.
It's nuts. Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah, it's definitely a game I want to play. I gotta take like a vacation and just like play it. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Even Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that even my therapy friends who don't typically play games play.
Yeah.
Like they're like, yeah, I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3. I'm like, what? I was like, I didn't know you play games, and they'd be like, I don't usually play games, but it looked really interesting when we kept talking about it. I'm like, holy crap, this is wild that it's so big that people who don't play games are playing it. Like that's wild. You know what I mean? It's great. I think it's Zelda level kind of like stuff in a way, but even more grandiose than that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's pretty crazy. And with that, storygoers, we're actually going to end there for now, and we'll pick this back up in next month's DLC episode to finish out who we think would be the best narrative of all the Game of the Year awards. We would continue, but after talking about it just feels like
we're gonna need time to talk about these things.
It'd be for another hour talking about it. That just feels like a lot. So it might be nice to kind of just sit with this for now and then come back to it for next month. And see what the winner would be, because it's just seeing the bracket right now and the way it looks, it just like we're about to already get into bigger conversations. That's just going to be so hard to figure out. Like I almost kind of like need the time to think like, okay, here's these two games are head to head in this battle like of narratives. Like I need to really like feel out how this goes, because like it's going to be really hard to pick a winner. So
yeah, definitely.
But so we'll end there, and then next month we pick up. We'll do a quick recap just to make sure we're all on the same page again, and we'll just go through the bracket, the gauntlet bracket, and but of course, storygoers, let us know what you think. What so far is right that we got right? What is wrong? Should Sekiro have beaten Zelda? Should Elden Ring have beaten The Last of Us for the narrative components that they have that we obviously do not see too much of or really care deeply for? And who would win, Last of Us or God of War? Because man, that's gonna be a hard one to pick.
That's gonna be a tough one.
That's gonna be the hardest one, I feel like.
That's gonna be a hard one. Yeah, definitely.
Let us know what you think, storygoers. Send us an email at talesfromthecartridge@gmail.com. All the E's are 3s. On our social media, leave a voicemail or text at 207-494-4334. Or answer the Spotify question down below if you're listening to us on Spotify. And let us know what your thoughts are, and we'll finish that up next episode. But we hope you're doing happy. We hope you're doing well. We hope that you're happy. We hope you're doing happy. We hope you're doing happy. You know what? Yeah, do happy.
Yeah, do happy.
I like it. Do happy.
Happy's good.
If we ever do merch one day, we had to have these like funny. Every time we mess up and make a mistake, we have to make like a merch happy.
Yeah, for sure.
Do happy.
Do happy.
We hope you're doing well. I hope everyone's safe and happy and doing good things. Let us know what you think about all these thoughts and feelings and whatnot, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.